Hey everybody, Dan Shinder here on Drum Talk TV, coming to you live from Globe, Arizona, 100 miles east of Phoenix, up in the mountains where it's still nice and cool. And we're here with Dr. Nadia Azar, coming to you from Windsor, Canada. And Dr. Nadia is going to talk with us about drumming injuries. We'd love for you to chime in. You could do so first by tell us where you're watching from. Nadia, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to have you on again. We haven't done this in a while. In fact, this is my first online live interview from my office this year, and it's almost March.
Wow. That's a long time.
Kinda
I know. I think the last time I was on was it November? December?
I was going to say, I
It's
think
been a while.
November. Yeah, so it's been a while. So,
Yep.
folks, if you're not familiar with this, Dr. Nadia Azar is a doctor of kinesiology. She teaches at the University of Windsor, and she's done several drumming injury studies. In fact, many of you from our Drum Talk TV audience may have even participated in that. We appreciate that. And we could talk about any drumming injuries you want, but Nadia had a great idea for today's topic, which is to talk about the warming up and cooling down process of playing. And she'll talk about the physiological aspect, and I'll chime in with some musical questions for you regarding that. So, Dr. Nadia, where would you like to start?
Well, maybe I'll start with why I wanted to, or why I thought this would be a good topic of conversation for today. You mentioned I teach at the University of Windsor. So yeah, I am a professor at the university, and half of my job is to do research. The research I do is on drummers and drumming-related injuries, and preparing your body for performance. And the survey that you mentioned, some of the questions I asked was about whether drummers warm up, take breaks, cool down before their performances and their practices. And I was really, really surprised at how few people said, other way around, how many people said they never or almost never cool down after they play. More people did say that they warm up, but still it was more or less a crapshoot. A lot of people said most of the time, but a lot of people said rarely. And it's, with drumming being such a physically intensive activity, it's really important, like you said, both from a physiological perspective, but also from a musical perspective, to warm up your body to be able to, or to deliver your best performance.
Right. Part of that is contributes to limbering up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
with
absolutely.
The warm-up process. You know, I always find this interesting because from a musical aspect, if you're just rehearsing yourself or working on your chops and stuff, you pretty much do what you want. But from a performance aspect, what is typically the last song or the encore? It's typically, not always, but quite often, it's a big, intense piece of music. So how do you cool off from that if you've just, the show ends with a big, intense song, like Achilles' Last Stand by Led Zeppelin or something? What's a great way for people to cool off and not just go from 60 to 0, like that?
Yeah, and you know what? It doesn't have to take a long time, and it's not complicated. Really, the purpose of a cool down is to bring your body back to its sort of normal state. So it's to slow down your heart rate, slow down your breathing,
right.
And to use the looseness that you've built up, I guess, to do some stretching to help maintain and promote some flexibility. So really, once you get off the drum set, really it's just important to not just go immediately like sit down somewhere. And I know a lot of drummers, you have to take down your kit and everything, and I get that. But even, 3 or 4 minutes of just walking around at a sort of moderate pace and slowly kind of slowing yourself down, and then take a couple minutes to do some static stretching, and that's it. We're talking about 5 to 10 minutes total.
Yeah, just like you would at the end of a routine on a treadmill or a bike or something.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of a workout at the gym, at the end of any, athletic training session for like professional or varsity athletes or what have you, there's always a cool down period at the end. Mm-hmm. And, like I said, it doesn't have to take a long time, but it is really important to do it.
What happens when we don't do that? What's happening to the body, or what does not happen that should happen, either way?
Well, it just, any kind of exercise is a stress on your body. And so when you've been operating with your body under that kind of stress, to bring it down gradually rather than so abruptly, and just you're just basically sort of helping your body return to its natural state in a more gentle way, instead of like an abrupt stop sort of thing. But it is also important for the static stretching part to take advantage of the fact that your tissues are warm and limber at that point. So to do some stretching to help keep that flexibility and loosen those muscles, for future, to stay limber when you're not that warmed up or off the kit, basically, and just keep yourself conditioned, essentially.
Right, that's great. Thank you for that. And folks, if you see me looking away, I am paying attention. I'm looking for comments, and I'm sharing this in a couple places. So I'm with you, and let us know. Also, Dr. Nadia Azar will answer questions if you have questions about drumming injuries like tendonitis, arthritis, bursitis, neck and shoulder pain, lower back pain, sciatica. I mean, it goes on and on, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. There's a whole spectrum.
I've been having an experience with some pain that I've never had before. I think I did mention this to you on the last show we did in November, but it's gotten increasingly bothersome, and it's typically, I'm right-handed, so my left hand is hitting the snare, and I've been getting tightness through here, and not just for advertising purposes, but truly, our sponsor for this show, Flow by Fairwinds. This is Flow 100% CBD cream. There's no THC. This stuff really has been magic. And the only thing I could think of that's causing this pain is April 2nd will be 50 years that I've been playing. And I know what you're all thinking. He should be a lot better, and I agree. But my point is, after 50 years of bang, 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 it's like, imagine a carpenter doing this all day not that I played all day for 50 years, but I think that's what it's from, because it's mainly this hand. And can static stretches help with that? And even if they can't, can you also, after you chime in on that, give us examples of some static stretches that we should be doing as part of our cool down period?
Sure. Without knowing exactly what the problem is with your hand, it's hard to say if there are particular stretches that will help with that specific issue. And I always tell people, because people ask me all the time about, what stretches should I be doing, and for a particular injury. And that is a question for a rehab professional. One of my grad students, Dylan, is a certified athletic therapist, and he and I co-wrote an article that I can drop in the link later, but where we talk about some sample stretches for warming up and cooling down and that sort of thing. And they're fairly general. They're generally recognized as safe and effective stretches. But my advice is always, if you're having a particular issue, you need to treat that issue. And so you need to see a physiotherapist or an athletic therapist or someone like that who is trained and knowledgeable and can not only make recommendations, but make recommendations based on your specific issue that will target that particular problem. At the same time, it's important to understand that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And so if you are having a problem of some kind, that it's not enough to just start doing stretches or start using a TENS machine or getting massage or what have you. That's putting a Band-Aid on a bleeding artery. And it'll help, but you need to go to the source. What's causing that? Did you recently make a change in the setup of your kit? Did you recently increase the amount of time you're spending playing? Are you playing a particularly complicated or physically intensive piece? You have to figure out did you start using heavier sticks? Any of those things can be a change that could lead to, or it changes the way you normally operate. And so it could be putting stress on new areas. And so without identifying that problem and what might be causing it, you might not, all the stretching and other things in the world might not be enough to overcome it. So it's really important to take a step back and look at also how you're playing and what you're doing, to think about how you might manage it that way too.
That makes a lot of sense. Thanks. I'm going to peek at the comments real quick.
Sure.
and let's see who's watching and see if anyone has any questions. Bill McFadden is watching and it says good topic. I'm glad that's helpful. Bill McFadden from No Nut Cymbal Sleeves. Jimmy Bain from Helsinki. Tim Bragg in France. I never warm up. Maybe I should. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yep, absolutely.
And I honestly don't think about that either. I just sit down and start playing, you know. So that's a good one. So Glenn Etter says, I have arthritis in both my thumbs that cause problems when I am playing. I've had to alter my grip and striking motion with the palms facing downward, so more of a German grip, that would be, with my palms facing downward motion, rather than inward, does help some, but wondering if warm-ups would help for that. I've never done warm-ups before, so I'm not sure what to do. And Glenn, I'm just curious, if you don't mind me asking, if you could chime in, tell us how old you are. I'm just curious of what age arthritis kicks in for people sometimes. And it's different for all of us. It's not just an old person's thing. But Nadia, would warm-ups help with that at all?
I mean, it certainly would help with preparing the tissues to be able to handle the playing. Whether you have an injury or not, warming up is an important part of playing. And that can be twofold. Partly a physical warm-up, more in the athletic style of like a dynamic movement type warm-up before you get on the kit. And then even once you sit down to play, easing into it. Starting off with maybe some more gentle rudiments or a lighter piece or that kind of thing to get the blood flowing and get the movements going before you kind of dive into the really intensive practice or right into the show if it's before a performance. So in terms of specific stretches for the thumbs, one that comes to mind, and again, I'm going to preface this with not knowing exactly what the issue is, you mentioned arthritis, but certainly a registered health professional is the right person to be consulting about a specific, rehabilitation type plan. But one thing, because I've had some tightness in my thumbs as well, not from playing the drums, but just probably from being on the computer all the time. But one of the stretches that I've seen is where you like tuck your thumb into your fist and then you kind of tilt your wrist downwards, like take your pinky and try to tilt it towards, and I can feel it even right now, getting a stretch through here.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that is something that might be helpful. But again, that's a static stretch. So that's the kind of stretching that is better for after, like when you're cooling down.
Okay.
Typically what we recommend for warming up is dynamic movement. So what that means is where you're actually moving the joints. So for thumbs, maybe it's some thumb circles in each direction, for the wrists, wrist circles, that sort of thing. But not the type of like stretch and hold. That's better for after, once the tissue's already warm. But the purpose of the dynamic movements is because what you're actually doing is getting the blood flowing to the area.
Yeah, it's part of the warm-up actually, in a way, right?
Exactly, yeah. So you're warming up the muscles, you're getting the blood pumping, getting the blood flowing, and that helps sort of prepare the tissues for the types of movements that you're about to be doing.
Great. I'm curious, I just happened to notice somebody clicked the angry face emoji, and I'm just curious why. So whoever did that, don't be shy. Go ahead and chime in. What are you angry about? And so Glenn says he's 62 and has gone from a once a month gig to 4 to 6 gigs a month. So a lot more activity.
Yeah. That can definitely be part of it, especially if it's a very sudden increase. Like if you're used to playing, even once a week, let's say, and then you all of a sudden start playing 4 days a week or 5 days a week, that's a pretty drastic change.
Yeah,
and so if you're used to only playing farther. Yeah, that's like never running ever and then deciding to run a 5K right off the bat. That's just, it's hard on your body. You have to prepare for that. So certainly going from 1 gig a month to 4 to 6 per month is a pretty substantial increase in activity, and that definitely could be part of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. And, every time for 2 years, every time we do this show, there's this guy that always shows up. I don't know if he's a troll or a stalker. The name is Azar. Oh, that's the last name. Nadia Azar. Oh, it's Nadia Azar, your husband. Sorry, Dory.
That's him.
Let's see who else is watching. Gordon, Cuba, how are you? He says, I'm 27. My physical therapist thought I had a cyst, but then I lost insurance to get an MRI. Should I stop playing? It's my career at this point with teaching and gigging. So to help Dr. Nadia answer your question, where is the cyst and how long have you had it? And you two can take it from there.
Yeah, the question of whether someone should stop playing, that's definitely not something that I can, especially, even if you were sitting right here next to me where I could actually see what was going on, I'm not a medical doctor who can make that kind of recommendation. If it's if the pain is that bad, then pain is a signal from your body that there's a problem. It's not something to be ignored. It wouldn't be there if there wasn't something wrong. And that doesn't mean like catastrophic wrong. It just means it's a signal that something is happening with your body, that your body wants you to, that hurts, stop doing that to us, kind of thing.
And then there's cysts that don't emit any pain at all.
Yeah, there are. And some cysts can be fairly benign. They might go away on their own. Others may stick around and be asymptomatic, or they might be painful. It's really, so I'm seeing he says right wrist, and he's had it for about a year. I'm guessing that's one of those ganglionic cysts, but I don't, obviously without seeing it, I don't know. But even at that, that's definitely something to talk to a medical doctor about. I know he said he lost his insurance, so I get that that's really difficult. But if playing is your career and it's impacting it to the point where you're wondering if you should stop playing, then it's probably worth the investment to go and get that checked out and dealt with.
Yeah, you could probably have an exam for $65, $75 US. I don't know where you're at, but I think that you'd be able to go somewhere and have someone look at that. And I see Zarly McAlpine is watching. Zarly, hope you're well out there in Scotland. Doug Miola, who happens to be, well, if he's at home, he's in Canada, I believe in Calgary, if I remember correctly. And Nadia dropped in an article for you to all check out when we're done. Lee Von Strand, hope you're doing well. Who else has any questions about, you're welcome, Gordon. Who else has any questions about any pains or aches or drumming injuries or anything like that? Like I said, mine's mainly my left hand, and this is new after playing drums almost 50 years. In a month, it'll be 50 years. It started, I want to say in November-ish, and it's kind of like through here. I get it. And the best way to describe it, to me, it feels like an impact pain. Like it's just from hitting over and over. And I never used to have it, but I'm a little older than I was last year. So maybe I just crossed that line in age where now that stuff's going to start to, affect me.
That's entirely possible. I think when we talked about it last time, though, didn't you recently change your drum heads?
I had, I had changed them, and the snare drum on my blue kit did feel different. It did definitely feel different than the head that was on there before. So that could have something to do with it. I don't want anyone to think that I'm insinuating that head is bad for you or anything like that. It's a different head. It's a different feel. I think I probably even have the tension different on it, and it's a thicker head, and there's a lot of different factors. So I'm not saying it's a bad product or anything like that. I won't even say what it is, but those of you who follow me probably know what heads I put on the Big Blue Cat.
Yeah, no, and that's a good point. That there's no, that drum head might be problematic for you because of the way you play and the way you have it tuned, and it might be exactly what someone else needed to go to for their body. There's no silver bullet when it comes to the right equipment, like the right equipment, and ergonomic equipment, and that kind of thing. What's ergonomic is what's ergonomic for you.
Right.
It's got to work for you. And a certain type or weight or length of drumstick might be hugely problematic for me, but it might be perfect for you. Or maybe a few of us don't like that particular drumstick, but you're an anomaly, or, so
Yeah.
you have to, there's a lot of trial and error. There's some general guidelines for setting up, your kit for like, reach distances and keeping things that you use often close to you and things like that. But, there's not a specific, like, it shouldn't be any more than 6 inches away, or, that kind of
Right.
thing, because everyone's different.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of trial and error involved in finding the right equipment for you and the right setup for you.
Yeah, and I now have a second drum set up in our studio. Soon to have a third. My electronic kit's been packed away since we moved here over 3 years ago. But I now have, I've got, for those of you who follow, you've seen my big blue kit. I now, on the other side of the room, have a 4-piece kit. What? Dan Shinder on a 4-piece kit? Yes. And in fact, tonight at about 6:30 Mountain Time, U.S., or 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern, I'm going to be doing something on that. And I'm actually planning a series to do on that kit. It's a Welch Tuning Systems kit. And this series, Nadia, will be to demonstrate how versatile that kit is by each night doing a totally different style of music. And maybe even something I would typically play on my bigger blue kit that's more progressive with more drums, more notes, cymbals, textures, and all that, but boil it down to just playing it on that 4-piece. So I've been having a lot of fun with that, and it certainly is set up different. Like if you took all the drums away from my big kit except for the 4-piece, it's not set up the same. It's set up in a way completely different. The only thing that's the same is probably the seat height and maybe the snare height. Other than that, the other drums are different. So it's been fun. I've never had a 4-piece kit before. The smallest kit I ever had was my first kit, which was 5, and that was with the 2 toms up front. So it's different. I've been playing a lot of jazz and swing and stuff like that. So yeah, so watch that, folks. Yeah, so I mentioned that because we got on the topic of ergonomics, and Nadia has said over and over throughout this series over the last couple of years that as drummers, often and sometimes we're even given this direction, depending on who our boss or employer is, but the drums are the largest vanity instrument on the stage. We take up the most space, and it's easy to set up like cymbals real high and do things so that there's a lot of showmanship and stuff like that, but depending on how we're physically built, it's not always good to make those reaches, especially if it's going to be a fast reach that's a big distance. You can create all kinds of shoulder injuries, pull muscles, joints, tendons, all kinds of things. So I've always enjoyed the topic of ergonomics, and it did make me reset some things on my kit. I think I only have 2 pieces that kind of violate the things we've talked about, and I don't hit them nearly the most often.
Right, and that's just it. That you can have those show pieces and those the stuff way far away, but keep that for the accents, the stuff that you don't hit very often. Once a song or every other, or that kind of thing. Right. The things that you use, like there's a reason why the snare drum is right up close to you. It's because you probably hit that and the hi-hats more than anything else in your kit. So the stuff that you hit all the time, you want it in closer so that you can reach it comfortably and not be overextending to hit, because you think about you're reaching, so you're already straining those tissues, then you're going to put a lot of force through that as well. And then after the impact, the vibration from hitting it, that travels up your arm. Like that's a lot of strain on your tissues. So if you can minimize that by bringing things in closer, so you don't have to reach quite as far. And depending on how you set it up too, you might actually get more bang for your buck, so to speak. If your muscles are at their optimum length for producing force, then you actually will get more force for less effort.
Yeah, economize how much you're moving, but getting more out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. Who have you gotten with anybody that you'd like to mention over the last 2 or 3 months since the last show? Or do you have plans to get with somebody to measure their caloric burn and heart rate and all that stuff that you do from time to time at shows?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure after our last show, I had just done data collection with Charlie Engen of Five Finger Death Punch.
Oh.
Yeah, and so he's going to be doing a second show. So we haven't published his data yet. But he's coming to Detroit in May. So we have a date set to do that again. Other than that, I do have several lined up and several on my wish list. But I don't like to mention them ahead of time, just in case something doesn't go through or. So, but I think I have about 7 people confirmed, like firm dates set.
Excuse me, what, 7? Between what, like, what's the time frame for those 7?
My first one is in 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks from this weekend, and between then and end of July.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Good. So, and there's still several who are also coming in and around that time period that I haven't, or even a few that are more later. Like there's several coming in July that I would really like to work with, but haven't reached out to yet. So
do you want to say who?
Who I haven't reached out to yet?
Yeah, that you would.
Yeah, I suppose I could do that. That I would like to work with. I just saw that the Foo Fighters are coming in May, so I would love to get Taylor Hawkins.
Yeah.
And also Green Day and Weezer and Fall Out Boy are coming.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so I would love to get Trey Cool and the others as well to do this. I don't think I've never had 3 drummers back to back to back like that, so that could be a stretch, but they can definitely handle 2. So we'll see. But so those are a few that are coming that I haven't reached out to, that I would like to try to get in.
Great.
So,
thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
So, folks, any last questions regarding drumming injuries? Hey, Juan, thanks for joining. I'm going to look at the comments here one last time, and I do want to remind everybody that this show is brought to you by Fairwinds Flow. It's 100% natural CBD pain relief cream with no THC. The aroma from this is amazing, and not only do I use it on my hand, and it helps very well, but my wife's been using it a lot on her lower back every night, and it makes the pain go away literally within 2 to 3 minutes. This stuff is amazing, and because it's 100% CBD, they can ship across state lines. They're based in the Seattle area. Seattle or Portland now, I don't remember. The Pacific Northwest, and they can ship all over the United States. So if you're in the U.S., you're interested, try it. I love it. We gave a bunch of these out at the NAMM show, little samples. And I've had people, even Carmine Apiece, Alan White of Yes, Peter Lockett, I gave them each one, and they've already reported back that they love it, and they're going to endorse the product. So it's worth looking into.
Cool.
Let's see if we have other questions real quickly here. And remember, the root of today's topic was warming up and cooling down before you play, something I'm guilty of not always doing, as confessed by my drummer brother Tim Bragg in France. So we have to pay attention to that. There's someone... Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any other comments. Oh, there is. I'm sorry. Derek, thanks for chiming in. Derek Wolford says, are there common problems of pain solutions that Nadia has found with the pro-level drummers that she's worked with? I think I understand that question. Then, Joseph, we'll get to you. So let me read that again. Are there common problems or pain solutions that Nadia has found with pro-level drummers that you've worked with? What have other people given as solutions? I've given you mine.
Yeah. So I haven't really spoken to the professional drummers that I've been working with. We haven't really talked so much about the injury side of things. We more so talk about the athleticism and the those kinds of behaviors. So I haven't really come across any. Sometimes they'll mention it in passing, but I haven't had.
I'm sorry, I was going to say, what about last year from the NAMM show when you were with us and you interviewed about? Did you learn anything from any of them on prevention or something they changed that minimized their injuries or anything? I think changing my setup a bit helped also. Yeah.
Okay. So let me finish answering that, but I will get to that too. So, so I haven't really been speaking with those guys about that. I might hear things in passing, but nothing that's really been a pattern. From the NAMM show interviews, I didn't hear, I mean, I heard a lot of people talking about shoulder injuries. Certainly in my survey, wrist injuries and low back problems were the big two that came out as the most common types of injuries. Usually tendinitis and carpal tunnel syndrome were the two most common diagnoses that people received. From those interviews, a lot of people mentioned that they do yoga as a way to stay limber and sort of manage that aspect. A lot of them made changes to their setups to accommodate their injuries and also to prevent them from reoccurring. So we talked about the cymbals, having them way out here because it looks cool and everything, but moving them in. I'm pretty sure it was Vinny Appice who told me that he's like, as he got older, his kits like gotten smaller and smaller and shrunken in towards him. True. But because both he and Carmine had the same shoulder injury, I think, wasn't it Carmine's shoulder gave out in the middle of a drum solo on stage, live on stage. Yeah. And I think I can't remember this for sure, but I believe at least one of them had surgery. It would be in the interview. I don't remember offhand if they did, so don't quote me on that. But
I think Carmine did.
I think so. Yeah. But I know they both had significant shoulder issues. And one of the ways that they managed it was bringing those items in closer so they don't have to reach and overextend and strain those tissues anymore. Right. I hope that answers your question, Derek. I'm not entirely sure. I don't have specific patterns that I can tell you from the people I've worked with, but those seem to be the more common. Like anything to do with the arm, that the shoulder and the wrist come up quite a bit as sites, not sources, sites of injuries for people. And so, preparing your body to handle the demands through warming up, setting up your kit to not strain strain yourself, reaching for things, and paying attention to your practice and playing habits. If you're practicing, take breaks to give your tissues a rest. If you're playing a show and you can't really take like breaks, in the few seconds between songs, get some shoulder rotations in, do some quick wrist circles, something just to kind of, loosen up those muscles and, break the sort of tension that you've been holding in them for the duration of the song. Even those micro pauses can be enough to help, reduce the severity of any injuries, if not, help prevent it.
Yeah, great, thanks. And I want to mention a comment from Joseph M. Havely. Says, would love to take part in one of the studies running a double bass. He's 58 and still kicking it. Love your show. Thank you so much. And Nadia, do you have a mailing list that people can sign up for so that when you do have other studies, you're able to blast out to them and make them aware of it if they want to take part in it?
Yeah, I don't have an official mailing list yet, like a MailChimp or anything like that, but my email address is on my Facebook page. There is the send email function. So if you hear of studies that, were potentially, or you're interested in being part of any future studies, and you'd like to hear about them, I do publish or do recruitment on my social media, so you'll see it. But if you wanted, direct contact, you can always send me an email and let me know, and I can put you on my contact list for future studies. Great.
Thank you so much, Joseph, and thank you everybody so much for watching. We're going to wrap up our first episode with Dr. Nadia Azar, first episode of the year, just in time before March, and we will be doing this monthly. So as you experience aches, pains, injuries, things like that, make note of them so that when we do this again, you'll be able to jump on board and remember what happened 3 weeks ago, a week ago, or whatever, so that you can ask questions about it. And Dr. Nadia Azar will always give the best advice she can within her jurisdiction of medical recommendations.
Yep, exactly.
Nadia, thank you so much for joining me again. It's fun to spin this up for the year.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me again.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. And thanks for following what we do. And if you're watching this live or seeing it on the archive today, February 27th, I will be doing a live from down in the Drum Talk TV studio on a 4-piece kit for a change. I've only done that a few times. couple times, other than when Sam Welch was here for a week before the NAMM show, and I got some great music picked out that I'm going to play, and we'll talk drumming and everything. So join me for that if you can at 6:30 Mountain Time U.S. That's 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern, right here on the Drum Talk TV Facebook page. Thanks, everybody.